Bannerlord can be a brutally hard game. Often you're outnumbered and massive armies march against you. Well, in this new series, we're going to work together, friends. What I want you to do is send me your difficult situations that you're either currently encountering in Bannerlord in your campaign, or something that you've dealt with in the past where you're just unable to solve it. I will do my very best to handle these difficult situations. I will share the results on YouTube, provided they have some kind of educational value for people. We will take on these difficult challenges, do some battlefield analysis, and hopefully help you turn around a very, very difficult battle. So join me on this adventure. Please send me your difficult situations. Have a little patience. I don't know how many there are going to be, but I'm willing to take these challenges on for you fellas as we handle your disasters of war. All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, and welcome back. This is one of our Disaster of Wars episodes, and we are going to continue today. This will probably end up being the fifth part of this rescue series as part of our Disaster of War series, where we collaborate with you players. You give us difficult situations, difficult battles or campaigns, and we try to solve it. Now, at some point, we'll put his email up, but effectively, Sean here was trying a really hard purist campaign where he was using Sturgeon-only troops, Sturgeon clan leaders, no bow for his main character, no horse, no smithing, basically cranked the difficulty to the maximum on Iron Man. And we have slowly been able to come back from the dead. When we first took over this campaign, of course, if you've been following it, you know, we were captured. He had no army, no troops, no fief. And we have slowly built things back up here. El Yaksha, we'll call her El Yaksha. That's probably not right, but it doesn't really matter. Now, we do have some non-Sturgeon companions, but our army now is almost entirely Sturgia like he wanted. It took us a little while to build up these troops, and we still have some woodsmen and veteran or non-veteran militia and looters and peasants and stuff like that. But through warfare, through army experience, we're going to drill these Sturgeons like Frederick the Great. We will turn these guys into a hardened batch of war veterans. Now, we're allied up with the Karakurgit. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a horse archer clan. It's a minor clan. Maybe Sean doesn't want us to do that, but we're taking some liberal edges of his desires, sort of the unknowns, and we're running with them. These stupid villagers resisting us. Kill them. A couple losses, that's acceptable. Again, more upgrades than losses is usually a benefit, right? Because we can go recruit more Sturgeon peasants. In fact, we've been going to the villages a lot in this campaign and just picking them up. Now, we've just picked up a bunch of Khazate prisoners. I could be an extraordinary purist and just go in and dump every single unit. We're not going to get overly tedious about this, but on some level at this stage, we are trying to do this kind of pure, right? This Karakurgit guy, I guess here's what we can do. He's got a bunch of these Karakurgit units. We can just dump him these Khazate-like units, and we'll say we have a Sturgeon army, but we have mercenary forces that are not Sturgeon, right? We don't have the Lake Rats. We tried actually getting the Lake Rats and the Skolderbroda to join us here, but both of them told us to eat shit. So, his character's getting pretty strong here, right? El Yaksha. Not too worried about every single perk. In fact, let's just skip that. I wish this Sturgeon army would turn around, right? Sometimes you gotta make them turn around, right? The easiest way to make them turn around is to raid a village or maybe siege Balgard. Let's see if this... No, they don't seem to care. We just lit the village on fire and they went the other way. So they're pretty dead set on sieging. And if you notice the name there, Nevyansk, that is way over by the Valandians, which is a reminder that the Sturgeons here are at war with both us and the Valandians. Now, we were at war with the Khazate. That was very brief. We did that to take Tayal. Once we took Tayal, we got peace with the Khazate. And despite the fact that we're badly outnumbered here by the Sturgeons, we're holding our own. Now, the Valandians very briefly were interested in alliance, but we don't really have the money to pay them to go to war. So we're just going to do this largely on our own. And we're going to continue to try to expand his fledgling empire here. And, oh shit, there's two of them there. I was hoping that army would turn around so that we could destroy them in the open, but this might be a lot more than that may be a lot more than I want to bite off here. 13, 14, that's probably 17, 1800 with all these smaller armies there. So what do you do here, right? You look for a better opportunity. Instead of sieging right now where the garrison would also join this and we would probably get captured, let's try to disorganize their troops somewhat here and do a little evasive action and see if we can't get them to sort of attack us in detail here. This is one of the advantages of having a fast army. Now we're slow right now because we are what do they call that? Disorganized, right? We got the disorganized star, and they're all kind of closing in on us here. We may just have to fight here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, 17. It's probably 1,700 troops. I'm happy to fight 800, right? We would love that. Even 1,200. But I don't really need to fight 2,000 all at the same time. And I don't want to fight in the dark here, right? So at a minimum, we're going to try to keep running and get daylight. We grabbed a bunch of villagers at this village. We're like, give us your troops. We need them right now. And they're like, huh? We need them now. You're about to go to war. You're fighting your former tyrannical employer. Join our army and fight for your independence. It's almost kind of like what Napoleon did. 9, 12. If we can just squeeze in here, maybe we can just engage 11 or 12. Okay, this will do. Perfect. So we get to fight these armies in detail instead of taking them all on at once. We fight 1,100, and we're still badly outnumbered, but we now have some pretty solid Sturgeon units. We don't have Fiend champs, right? We lost some of our best units. So I guess if we start winning battles with this army, it'll be proof more that tactics work and less that it's about Fiend spam. For a while there, we had 30 to 40 Fiend champions, and that was helping us plow the road. Now we've got some banners here, and we continue to sort of set up the best possible captains. Those kind of things are very important in battles like this that rate to be close. Any of these battles we lose, of course, will be pretty devastating to our rebuilding efforts here. All right, well, it's very difficult for me as a commander because, of course, I need to be able to see. So right away, I'm viewing those hills as places I might run to because just like Napoleon or any other general, if you can't see, it's very hard to command your units around. So we've got a large horse archer division. That's those Karakurgats. And we still have units that are mixed. I think the 7th and the 4th have been mixed every battle. So let's at least fix the 7th. Let's split those guys off. We can have a shock troop division here. We finally have, a whole division basically of shock troops. So let's do this. Let's do the 3rd Corps can be shock troops. We will switch probably the 7th archers to horse archers, and then the 8th division to cavalry. And what that'll do, of course, is that'll give us 2 cav wings, a horse archer division, a skirmisher division, a shock troop division. We don't have as many infantry as I'd like. We have 130 out of our, it looks like about 400 troops. I wish we had about 200 infantry, right? Sturgeon infantry is not great, but if you can use them correctly, they're pretty devastating. 4th and 5th. So we're down to 2 archer divisions here, but these cav wings are so important to play defense in Bannerlord. The bottom line is that spear cavalry is best used early on as defensive measures, and we've got a nice skirmisher division. There's some units in there that don't have javelins. That's okay. About 2/3, 3/4 of that division had javelins. There's some lake rats in there. We have some other skirmishers, some sturgeon skirmishers. There's skirmishers here in this 8th Corps too, right? So those guys can add their javelins to it. On this far left side, we're going to have what I call shield and shock, right? The 4th, 5th, 6th. This 2nd and 3rd division will be paired together most of the battle, and that's cavalry and shock troops. 1st division has a little bit more javelins than I want, so we can pull some of those guys to the 6th division, but that looks good. And we've got 3 basically infantry divisions of roughly equal size. The 6th is actually the biggest division. Now our companions are hardly optimized. Look at the stats. We have double, like almost single digits in stats for some of these characters. Very, very poorly spec'd, and it's not Sean's fault. It's the new beta, right? Your healers have horrible fighting skills. We're talking they come out of the tavern with single digits in combat. All right, we got a blinding sunset here, or a sunrise, or whatever it is, but we're going to get to a high point of elevation. Sometimes here I just like to charge, right? You can charge everybody, or you can have them follow you. And what it is I want them to move up quickly. We've got to get into position quickly. You see the bottom number there, the units, 260, 250. At about 150, it's too close, right? Like basically you want your archers shooting before they're within 150 units of range, because otherwise all that infantry is closing on us, this much larger force. We've got to get into position here and kind of in a hurry. So I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second. I got to actually think 1st Division towards the center. We can get archer divisions set up on both of these hills. 2nd and 3rd, we're going to have to back them up a little bit here. So trying to get here, get these units out of my way. What is going on here? Go. I got cavalry all plugged up here. Okay, the skirmishers are getting into place. The 2nd and 3rd's good. Let's get the 4th Division over on this hill here. Let's back the 5th all the way up. Let's just push them out of the way. We're going to kite here anyways. We're going to fall back, right? The old feigned retreat. But before we do that, we want to do a little bit of damage to the enemy as they come in. All right, on this far side here, we have skirmishers. And way over there, we have the 7th and 8th Division. That's basically horse archers closer to us, and the 8th Division is cavalry. I'm just going to kind of hold that side of the flank. Spar with the enemy cavalry a little bit, play some defense while we focus on destroying their infantry. Okay, the 2nd and 3rd Division. You can keep backing these archers up too. Now the 7th Archer Division is a good division as well, or excuse me, is a horse archer division as well. We need to keep those guys flaming arrows into the enemy ranks here. We don't really want them circling. There may be a point in this battle where we try to circle with them, but right now it's better for them just to be on a flank where they're not as vulnerable to enemy archers. Over here, the 2nd and 3rd Division is now ready. So at my command, that cavalry division, get back 6th, that cavalry division will pour through the enemy ranks, and behind them shock troops. Right now we're making this concerted effort to pull back, and the enemy's running right into immolating archery fire. We don't have fiends, but the Sturgeon Archer has been boosted some for the beta. You know, some guys say they have a different bow. I haven't actually explored the inner guts of the Sturgeon Archers. What I can tell you is I've seen a difference, right? Now we've got the 3rd Division here. I'm just going to keep pulling these guys back. A lot of guys want to send their shock troops in. Look at our archers working. Why send our shock troops in while the enemy still has 150 healthy infantry? 138, right? Let's wait until they're a little bit more battered. Now we can start coming in here on this left flank with the 1st Division, which is heavy infantry, and then behind them we'll bring shock troops. I mean, the enemy's being scorched as they come up to us. No fiends, but archers are still deadly in Bannerlord. Now the cavalry, all I'm doing here is kind of running them around, almost back and forth and behind the enemy to occupy them, to keep them busy, to make their formations kind of broken, to disrupt their shield walls, and it's done an amazing job, right? Their force is largely dead, and our infantry division hasn't even charged yet, right? It's a lot harder on foot because you got to keep moving while all this shit's happening. Now we can annihilate the rest of this infantry. It's down to 50 guys, and they're injured, right? So in come the 1st Division, 3rd Division here in a little bit of a false gap. Open up the center, and the screen is just fizzing green, even though the enemy has Legionaire too. They have Legionaire and tough units here just being obliterated. And there's almost no ally death. It's just a pulverizing here. As our shock troops come up, they look like axe murderers. Absolutely look malicious. I had a guy ask me, he said, what's the most badass looking troop to you? Well, I'm not an aesthetics guy, but the Sturgeon and Heroic Linebreakers, they look savage, right? You don't want to be staring down the barrel of one of those guys coming in with that nasty chain helmet, swinging their axe 100 miles an hour. They also seem like they're extra big units, right? The game tends to give higher level units more size, and those Linebreakers, the Heroic Linebreakers, look like hulking beasts. Now, the enemy's defeated here already, right? We've massacred their vanguard and cavalry with very few losses, right? So now you could F1, F3. We'll be somewhat strategic here. Move up infantry divisions towards the center. Blitz the enemy's side with cavalry. We've got 2 archer divisions spreading and opening up a really wide formation. And this enemy force is going to die pretty quick. Now, this series, we're going to continue to try to do tactics, to try to talk about stuff, try to talk about campaign strategy. And part of the reason I talk so much is that there's a lot going on. Guys are learning. Guys are confused what the hell we're doing. And without like the RTS mod and flying overhead like in a helicopter, it's not always easy to explain to people what we're doing here. We're doing a lot of movement, and I want a lot of that to at least make sense. Now, we still have this bug. I cannot kick units. If I get trampled by a horse or I try to kick somebody, I drop down towards hell. It's like Satan has banned, or God has banned, kicking and slamming people with your shield. You get a view of the netherworld every time it happens. Not trying to offend any religious people. We're just trying to keep it light here. It's a bug. Basically, the game has acquired new bugs as we advance here through the 1.3 beta. It's been sort of par for the course, and I imagine it's infuriating for Tale Worlds, right? They're adding all these things, and with them, almost like parasites, as I disappear into the floor. You know, there's side effects of this shit. Now, his character has a blazing fast sword, and on top of that, you know, it's starting to get up there in one-handed skill, 257, 256 athleticism. His character's starting to power level, and this campaign very quickly is turning into a massacre. In the early stages, it was extremely hard. In the mid stages, it was difficult. Now that we're starting to snowball and our army's starting to shred and upgrade, get good captains, it is turning into a beatdown session. Just go through here and kill everything in sight. She's getting hit and kind of grunting, ooh, ah, but she's also killing everything that's in front of her. She's pretty quick, too. A lot of characters are slower than this, and that is because he probably has a lot of the perks that give his units speed. You notice also the speed of the sword. You can literally swing at someone and just keep mashing your mouse pad like an idiot, and they can't counterattack you because the weapon speed and the skill speed is so high. You just blow right through their attacks. That is how I learned Bannerlord, right? Some guys are like, you should be parrying, you should be doing this. Nah, I mean, you can do all that stuff, but in big battles, I find it 10 times more effective just to keep moving, use your weapon speed, slash everything in sight, avoid getting yourself too deep, and just cut a path. And it's hard to argue with the results here. 122 losses. We killed 1,000, and we had 122 losses with Sturgeon troops. So they ain't that bad. And we don't have any. I guess we have Karakurgit, but it's not like those are cons guards. I think they top out at tier 3 and tier 4. So you know, you see this the stunning power of tactics in Bannerlord. Pick up some prisoners here. My love for prisoners is unabated. And let's see, I don't think they're going to engage, right? After they saw that destruction, they're going to run now. So what do you do here? I think you just siege Ove Castle, if I remember right. It has a nice layout. This is the kind of castle we definitely want to take and add this to the retinue. We've done castle and city defense series for most of the different cities and castles in Calradia. I have no life. I'm a loser. So we just crank out content like crazy here. I'm an obsessive compulsive person. So I've got a wife and a life, and I'm a full-time firefighter, and we've got a robust garden, and we could do backpacking trips and stuff like that. Maybe I just never sleep. That's probably what's going on. Of course, once you get older, you don't sleep as much, and this is scientific. I can tell you my own experiences here if this is boring, but when I was a teenager, I slept 14 hours straight, as often as I could. Not only that, but then I would stay up like 20 hours, so you can do the math. I went through a stretch where I was in between graduating high school and joining the military to become a firefighter, and I was at home basically going through the process of joining the Coast Guard or one of the other military forces. So I was at home and just sort of passing the time. And I went through a period where I would have 34-hour days. And I guess what I mean by that is that my days would sort of start to overrunneth the 24-hour calendar. Now, this is starting to look ominous. You see all these troops pouring in here? That's like, I don't know, 2,000. We don't want to fight 2,000 troops, right? There's a huge army mixed in there. Sometimes here you just want to leave, right? The garrison sallies out as well. All of a sudden, it's, it says 2,600 attacking you, and you're captured, right? We're going to get attacked here anyways. I'd like to grab this guy here with his 82. We're disorganized. Although the other army is slow, right? So they're having a hard time closing. But you don't want to just sit there. There are times where it's good. You want to attack the enemy. For players that are trying to emulate what we do on the channel, I would say anything less than 1.5 times your number, you should be able to defeat relatively easily. But once it gets to 2 or 3 times your number, it becomes a whole different ballgame. And the main reason we're attacked here, I was trying to avoid having this battle at night. It's all right, we'll sit up and focus here. But the main reason is that once you start to get to, say you're outnumbered 3-1, it represents that on the battlefield. So you have 250 troops in a normal 1,000-person battle. They have 750. Very different animal under those circumstances. You must have great troops and great tactics. All right, it's a similar part of the battlefield, but look at this. This is great. In fact, let's do some instructional shit, right? You guys want some instructional shit? I heard it's the label. In fact, we'll title this episode Instructional Shit. This ridge here is great. Look at this angle. Their archers can't shoot us. It's a reverse slope decline for part of the battlefield, so we're going to use it. We're going to put archers, skirmishers, horse archers over here, and they have cover. They cannot be shot by the enemy archers. We'll funnel the enemy towards the center here. We'll have a nice solid shield wall to shove in their face. On this far side, let's do a circle and square defense, right? We can have a circle of cavalry protecting shock troops, and then I guess we'll just do crossbow or an archer division behind them. We don't have crossbow to do a true circle square, but this circle defense works well, right? A little circle defense there, and then some shock troops inside it, right? It's very effective. Enemy cavalry charging here, trying to kill these guys. They get slowed down by the ring, and then like one of those horror movies, they get met by axemen, right in their face. Now, let's see. We've got the 4th division of archers, and I'd prefer that your main division, in other words, your flanking division was smaller. Your main division of your 2 archer divisions, if you have 2, should be bigger. That way the enemy's drawn towards them. If they come towards the right here, it'll fuck with our plans. So I'm going to put less archers on this side. We got 69 horse archers. That's already a lot of horse archers, right? If we put 71 archers there, I think it actually makes sense just to make the 4th corps bigger. And what we're actually going to do is bait them, right? We're going to do the stripper dance. We're going to wave that 4th corps of archers at the enemy's face, which will serve a couple different purposes. I'll talk about that as the battle starts here. Now, we might need to bring these guys a little closer once we get down to the battlefield. But it's a collapsing formation, right? The 1st division in the center, baiting with that 4th division. This 2nd division over here on this far side, just protecting those shock troops till it's time to kill. The 4th division is out in front at the beginning here because I want them to shoot, kill stragglers, and be tempting for the enemy. In fact, I can push them even further here so they have better line of sight. You got to make sure you move them back in time, right? The worst thing that can happen is they get hit by a bunch of jav cavalry. If the sturgeon hardened brigands get in there and you start chucking their javelins at them, they're going to get mowed down. But look at that. They just killed 2 lords in like a second. Right? The lords come ahead sometimes with the horse archer division. They insta-died. All right, so skirmishers holding fire, archers working. We're going to pull them back very soon, right? These guys right here, you can just pull them back. We'll pull them back to this square to start. Again, we're trying to get the enemy to come towards the center. And then as the enemy closes there, we'll move them back one more time. Now, I've got this cav division over here. These guys have one job. Survive the oncoming cav onslaught, right? They're going to charge us with heavy cavalry. It's like 70 dudes. Protect our archers, horse archers, and skirmishers. We'll do the rest. Now we're protected from archers. We shouldn't get hit a lot. The cavalry will get hit because they're over this ridge. You'll probably start to hear them getting shot. But their infantry is fucked. Their cavalry is fucked. And our archers might actually be a little high here. Our guys are getting hit here. I don't care if the cavalry gets hit, right? Let's move these archers down, though. At least cavalrymen have good armor, good shields. They're expendable. Our archers we're trying to protect. And, of course, the guys are like, wow, I want you to run 90% sturgeon infantry and win. You can. It's just much harder. You're allowed to do that. The bottom line, though, is that with tactics, archers own the fucking battlefield in Bannerlord. Horse archers, archers, and javelin units own the battlefield. Full stop, period. There is no other alternative. You can still win with the other units, but those 3 units are by far the strongest units in Bannerlord. Shock troops are maybe kind of in the middle. They're very powerful. And then towards the bottom, of course, is cavalry. All right, so backing these guys up here. Enemies magnetizing towards the square. We'll pull it this way because we want the archers, the skirmishers, shooting these guys right in the face up close. Now, here comes their cav charge. They got a bunch of camels. It's okay. Their momentum was seriously stopped there. They'll get a few kills, but not very many. Now this 6th Corps can be told to fire on that far side, the 2nd and 3rd Corps. That's shock troops and cav division. We just want them coming this direction, right? We want them joining the slaughter. This 6th Division of skirmishers is firing away, right? You can see this 3rd Division, or 1st Division actually kind of broke apart. Get in a square, you dipshits. Now look at how tightly packed the enemy is there, right? They're being shot by horse archers. Our skirmishers are right next to me, chucking javelins. Now we can get the skirmishers behind the enemy, right? They're like moving past our divisions. Good. We'll throw some javelins right in their back. In a typical shield wall formation like this, the enemy will have its shock troops towards the back. That means they have no shields, right? That means they're going to get killed. Line breakers. In fact, I just killed one. Had a little jump throw. Killed a line breaker. 2nd and 3rd Corps are in here now, starting to wail away on the other side. And at this stage, absolutely, you could F1, F3. Everybody just charge. The enemy's surrounded. And in about 20 seconds, there's not going to be any more enemies. They're going to be all dead. And it was a lot of infantry, and they just melted. Could level up Elyaksh's one-handed skill. I'm trying not to kick. It's very much instinct, but I think it'll cause my player to go down into the another world. Oh shit! Now that's a change I'm not thrilled about. The Sturgeon heavy heroic line breakers have hammers. Not all of them, of course, but some of them now have hammers, and I'm not thrilled about that. I think I would prefer they had whatever two-handed axe they had before. My hammers from our older smithing. They may not exist anymore, right? They've changed some of the smithing pieces. It looks like they just got rid of the tier 2 handle for hammers, which is a tragedy, right? I don't know why they would get rid of parts. Maybe they saw one of our videos where Hugh the Hammer was wielding it and killing a whole army by himself. I don't know. They're not that OP. They're very powerful. But if you're going to do that, then you got to get rid of the Falcks, right? Like, you know, there's other strong weapons. So I don't know. I'm not thrilled about that change at all. All right, so we've got a bit of a ridge here. They're moving up archers, so we want to tuck our units right underneath this ridge, right? You see this ridge right ahead of us here? Perfect. We can get our archers over here towards our right as we're facing forward. It's our left now. We'll have protection here. We can get infantry right to the edge here as their dipshit archers suicide. I always assume the guys that come by themselves, one of either two things happened to them recently. Either they just got a divorce and they're suicidal, or they just got married and they're suicidal. I always figure it's one or the other, right? They're not in the mid stages. It's that early stage. You're like, oh my God, what have I done? Or at the end of it where you're like, oh my God, what did I do? All right, let's blow through these sturgeons now. Most of their units are charging. We've got horse archers here. These guys will be pretty mobile. We've got some cavalry. A lot of our archers are low on ammo. And now we can just blast through the rest of their divisions here. They've got a lot of troops left, right? So that's why the organizational process here was sort of meticulous. If we just charged F1, F3 2 minutes ago, we would have suffered a lot of losses. The cavalry especially, because they're out front. And they charge in and they would have been mauled by infantry. All right, you guys have pulled back. That'll do. Charge. This poor enemy gets sucked in and vaporized. Looks like all those recently married husbands. This is what's happening to them. They're all getting fucking backstabbed. Nah, I digress. I'm a fan of marriage, but I've got some philosophies on it that not a lot of people agree with, or at least not a lot of people like. I'm one of those science nerds. I believe in science, and the science of it is pretty clear. The human being is designed to be polygamous, and I'm not advocating we should all have 15 wives. What I'm saying is in sort of our native environment and what we sort of feel in our bones, right? What we feel on an instinctive level is that human beings are supposed to mate with as many different women as possible. It's basically following all the other species on the planet, whether we're talking about plants or frogs or bonobo monkeys, right? Where basically it's for the progeny of our genes, right? We're supposed to find as many conceivably good mates as possible and then make babies with them, right? That's our purpose on the planet biologically. And because of that, it's very difficult to reconcile that with marriage and monogamy, having one wife for your whole life. So it takes a whole lot of thought work, maybe some coaching, some therapy, but also a philosophy and discipline to say, okay, this is my wife, this is my one person, I'm going to make them their soulmate, and I'm going to push forward with that, right? Otherwise, most people, the results are plentiful. In America, the divorce rate's like 60-70%. Firefighters, it's even higher. And in Europe, many places in Europe, it's actually still fairly common, although you guys can feel free to enlighten me. I do not live in Europe. I just hear what I hear. It's still somewhat common to have sort of a quasi-accepted affair, especially in certain countries. I won't name the countries, but, and again, you guys can feel free to enlighten me. Maybe I'm totally ignorant. A lot of the history that I read is 10, 20, 50 years ago. But the bottom line is that it's human nature to spread our genes to a wide variety of different women, right? Different progeny, different mates. And so I think that's one of the most important things to understand about marriage, is that is going to be your natural instinct. That does not mean you should follow that natural instinct, just like it's my natural instinct to eat the entire pizza, the entire extra large pizza, because I've been programmed to be prepared for famine, basically a period with no food. Evolution has prepared me for that, so that if there is no food, I don't die right away, right? It's the same kind of a concept. It's an evolutionary training. And since we know that, we can override that, right? If you know that you're programmed to seek other mates and you understand why that's happening, it's a lot easier to override that and say, well, that's illogical. I'm aware of these tendencies of my brain. Let me control that more. Right? Just like we don't eat the whole pizza, or at least we try not to eat the whole pizza. There's one of my favorite comedians. He was talking about Oreos. He's like, I don't eat Oreos till I'm full. I eat Oreos till I hate myself, right? And it's the classic joke that we're not fully in charge. We'd like to think we're in charge, but we're not really all the way in charge, right? That's why we do stupid shit that we regret later on. We have all kinds of primitive instincts. Guys road rage because someone cut them off on a highway and beat the guy up and get 20 years in prison. Their wife divorces them and their whole life falls to shit because they fell for their primitive instincts. So that's the number one key, is to understand those instincts. All right, let's go to Takor Castle. I'm almost certain Takor Castle and Ov Castle have the exact same layout, which is to say it's a brilliant defense layout. And if it's not, I don't actually remember. Most of them I've memorized. I think I might actually be wrong. It doesn't matter too much. The bottom line is we're going to go for the easier target here, and I want all of our possessions on this side of that little land bridge there, that little river, whatever you want to call that, ocean crossing, that fjord that we just went over. That way we can isolate all our possessions on this side of that fjord, on this side of that ocean opening there, that passage, and protect it. It's going to be much, much easier to protect it that way, right? Because we can use this area right here as like Gandalf on the bridge in God, I can't think of the name of it. There's two different names for it, and I usually think of the longer name for it, but in the Lord of the Rings, right? While they're in that dungeon. This is what happens when you get old, fellas. Don't get old. It sucks. Let's do this. Let's punch the engineering skill. Part of the reason, of course, is I'm trying to focus on the game as well. When they're in Moria, also known as Khazad-dûm, right? You Lord of the Ring fans are like, you gotta know the name of her. You're not a fan. Gandalf blocks the bridge from the Balrog, right? It's beautifully done in the movie, and it's pretty close to the how it's written in the book. You want to have that kind of a defense structure for your kingdom, and as Sean's new kingdom here, if we can own all of the possessions east of this land bridge, it's going to be a lot easier to hold, right? Because we'll be able to sort of govern that crossing. Now, there's no scouts. It would be nice if there were some features added to Bannerlord, like you could post a scout army that would notify you, hey, such and such army one day ago, a cavalryman runs up to you in the campaign map and says, oh shit, an army of 1,600 sturgeons crossed here. It'd be nice if you could assign patrols. It'd be nice if you could assign armies that would give you intel, because that's really lacking right now, and that's definitively something they did in the medieval era, right? Information is power, and we're just passing up on it here. And it's essential, right, to have good information to proceed with a good campaign. Now we're boosting his engineering skill. We've been talking about that during these episodes. I'm a huge fan of having engineering skill, at least to 200-ish. You get some really nice perks. You get the fire catapults, which are incredibly destructive. You want to boost your throwing, your athleticism. And what do we got going on here? What is this shit? They're like, I think they're getting ready to attack. So this is a tough decision. I can't tell how many there are, right? There's just a bunch of numbers all merging together. The garrison probably will sally out. 180. Of course, the normal process here is you want to destroy as much siege as possible, right? They've got a bunch of catapults still. If we attack right now, we're gonna suffer pretty dire losses because those catapults, a couple of them are fire catapults, and they will lob those into our troops as we approach. Oh shit. It looks like they're bluffing. You guys are bluffing. You bitches ain't attacking. I'm calling their bluff. Sometimes you just gotta stand your ground. It looks like the AI wants to attack, but it's uncertain. And maybe more armies are coming. What I'm going to try to do here is siege this castle before they attack. If we can do that, then we can deal with whatever's outside there. Now, if I knew how many it was, say it was 1,100 again, I'd happily let them attack. Because they would just slam their dick against us, slam their dick in the car door. Man, that would hurt. And you would get obliterated, right? They will get obliterated. Yeah, if you slam your dick in the car door, you're going to get obliterated. You're going to be in the hospital. So we're going to be able to get our siege on here, I think. We've got some trebuchets built. We're building a whole separate round here because they actually destroyed our first set. A lot of that has to do with the engineering skill. If you don't have great engineering skill, and Elyaksha here is you know, she's a novice. She's getting better at siege. I would say she has average siege skill at this stage. When you don't have good siege ability, it's hard to overpower castles, right? It's essentially a siege duel, and their engineers they're better than us, right? Okay, they're moving in here for the kill. I think we've got enough things right here to launch the siege here. And this is sort of snafu. They're moving into attack, and we can just attack the castle, and they can't do anything about it. On our channel, we have highlighted the beautiful reinforcement system mod. I think that should be part of baseline Bannerlord. It works beautifully well. If you check out the Vlandian campaign, we show it over and over again. But in a nutshell, it allows them to attack you from behind while you're attacking a city. And I think that's both really interesting, really dynamic strategically, realistic, and it makes decisions a lot more interesting here, right? We probably would have abandoned the siege and tried to deal with those sturgeons first. Now, standard tactics here, and what I mean by standard is this works very well for 90% of situations. A strong first division with some of our best shielded troops. I always prefer they have shields. Second division is skirmishers. The fourth division here on the siege tower. We need somebody on the ram. Who is on the ram? The third? Where's our divisions here? Where is the ram? Cannot see the ram. I see the third division here, but I don't see the ram. Oh, here we go. Shit's tucked in here. And so you just click those little gears. That third division's on the ram. And this second, first, and fifth, we'll call the fifth of Archer Division over here. Hold fire. We're going to obliterate and blast our way through this castle. We have far and away ranged superiority at this stage over every army we face. And it's part of the reason that archers are too powerful. You already destroy everything in siege defense by having lots of archers. But then you destroy everybody in the open field too. You destroy them in, you know, if you play Twister with archers, you destroy them, right? The archers are dominant in Twister. If you guys have ever done Pictionary, archers are dominant at Pictionary. They always guess the right thing. They order the best pizza. They're the best wives. Basically, the bottom line, of course, I'm joking here, is that archers, they shouldn't be the best at everything, should they? They shouldn't just dominate all scenarios. But as long as they do, and the skirmishers are dominant, as our guys just blast everything on the walls, it's fun to look at it, right? And just watch these guys get melted. We go up here boldly, knowing that there's scores of skirmishers down there just scorching everything, right? All the weapons are hitting the enemy while we push in here and we blast our way through this castle. Now we want to minimize casualties here, right? Because obviously we've got another siege after this, or another battle after this. Those sturgeons, we want to fight them actually. Oh no, no, not again. You mother... Looks like we hopefully just by taking off the RTS mod, that's enough, right? I think the RTS mod is behind most of these crashes. I still get some guys who give me tips from time to time about how to make the RTS mod work more consistently with the game. This series is almost over, and what I mean by that is we're about to turn this back over to Sean, so to speak. I'm not sure he'll even be able to use this save game, but our work is going to be done here, maybe after the destruction of this Sturgeon Force. This is different than the first time. I think we'll let this Sturgeon Force come in. Of course, the first time, I mean, you're watching this, I'm probably clipping these together. It crashed. We had the RTS mod crashed on us again. So we will try our luck here, and this Sturgeon Force just fucked up, right? You can see the power bar. They're very slightly favored, which means they're going to get massacred. Our well-oiled machine here with tactics is going to dust this Sturgeon Force. This would be a good example where generative AI would be highly welcomed. Not only should they try different tactics here, but they should have reports from the previous 4 Sturgeon armies that in a similar situation got decimated, and they should bring more next time, right? To quote, right, the Night of the Living Dead, bring more brain, right? These guys are going to get obliterated. Now, we could do some different stuff, right, in these episodes, but the main theme remains the same, right? When you're facing the Sturgeons, 70%, sometimes 80 or 90% of their army is infantry. We could do really elaborate tactics like a full-blown kill box with skirmishers on all sides, but it's much harder to do on foot. We remain on foot here, trying to be pure to what Sean originally requested us to do here. So we're going to try to do these on foot, but I would not recommend trying kill boxes and trying elaborate tactics like this on foot. You can't see very much. It's very easy to get lost in the mix of different units here. In fact, we can do a little bit of a simplified one, like a lazy man version of it. We've got our square, 63 tough infantrymen. It's probably mostly tier 5 units. Sturgeon veteran spearmen, Sturgeon heavy axemen. And what we can do is we can hide in it. We can command under the safety of all those guys around us, right? The square provides enormous protection to the core of the square, especially when it's tough Sturgeon units and there's 60 of them. I bet if we did nothing, we could literally just absorb the enemy's infantry attack for like 2 minutes before we finally fell apart. Maybe 3 minutes. So you could put skirmishers here. I don't know if it's going to work out well, but maybe that's what we'll do here. Now, I got to fix line of sight. Right away, the commander in me says those archers can't shoot. So we've got to adjust, right? Your archers have to be able to shoot. Your skirmishers have to be able to see the enemy. Otherwise, they're fucking worthless, right? They're as good as a paperweight. They're not even as good as a paperweight. They don't even hold down the piece of paper, right? They're just worthless there. So that means we also have to move all the rest of our formations, which is a bummer because I was hoping just to be able to show it to you and then, of course, fight it from there. But most of these tactics should start to make sense now, right? We've got on that far side a cavalry division protecting the horse archers and the skirmishers. We've got an archer division behind the square in the center. The 2nd and 3rd cavalry are leading the way over here. How many is that? Okay, that's only 6 horse archers. I don't even really care about 6 horse archers. We'll just kind of ignore these guys, right? This is like trying to step on a spider while there are 2 mass murderers in your bedroom. And you're like, oh my God, babe, there's a spider, as she's knifed to death. Yeah, we just don't care about a couple little Sturgeon horse archers here. These guys are raggedy. They don't really mean shit. You could hold fire here in a long battle, right? They're being blasted. Doesn't really matter. All right, let's get over to our square here. Now, our skirmishers are moving up. Maybe that's too close, right? This guy here. You want these guys maybe 20 yards from the center of the battlefield. That's where we want to make our headquarters, right? This is going to be the ship that we're commanding all our units from in this Navy battle. We're going to get inundated. It's difficult against the Sturgeons, of course, because their units look like our units. They're even the same color. A lot of the series I try to avoid this, but this was, sort of part of the requirements. He wanted Sturgeon units involved, right? So we're doing the best we can. Moving our skirmishers in. The enemy's already being shot and pounded with javelins. Our square is facing them. That cavalry over there is a little bit close to the flank of the enemy, but that's okay. Now this 3rd division is just unleashing javelins like crazy. The enemy's starting to magnetize their square here, so we're just going to move it away from the skirmishers. That way all those skirmishers have more targets to drill in the back. And we're just basically holding tight our square here. This is a very lazy approach to it, and you really could F1, F3, and then I would tell the square to follow me. So I would make everybody charge except the square. I would tell them just to follow me and stand here. Right? Now that the enemy's actually attacking our skirmishers, I would prefer we charge. Right? That's a little variation. If I had more time, I would have told you ahead of time. If they ignore your square, you end up typically behind the enemy because they bypass you. Charge. Charge right into their backs. If they're dumb enough to let you basically flank them, they're staggering me as I try to pull out my javelins here. Little fuckers. Alright, enemy being melted. Something fierce here. Now, we actually took quite a few casualties there, right? That wasn't super clean, but that's a function of us doing simplified tactics. Instead of doing a lot more elaborate kiting, we did basically sort of blunt force. And I explained that to guys. I think this is a perfect way to learn tactics, is to do more simplified versions of it, right? Don't move. You don't learn calculus in 3rd grade, right? You're going to learn some arithmetic. You're going to learn some times tables. You're going to learn some tangents and trigonometry, and then eventually you can start getting up to very high levels of whatever it is you're doing. Now, I love doing this in battles. If you have good athleticism, just let these dipshits chase you. Right? It's almost as good as them being dead. I don't mind if 6, 7 guys are chasing me, right? Because it's guys that are not attacking our troops. You're taking them out of the battle. Every once in a while, you can find new targets. Just remember, you got to keep moving, right? They're running, chasing behind me, and you just club whatever you can while there's dipshits chasing you. Still a posse chasing me, right? And we just take an occasional swing, club down one of their friends, and you just keep moving. A lot of guys tempted to fight. Don't look for someone who's a more obvious target. Just let them keep chasing you. They're not exactly brilliant. Right? These are infantrymen. These guys did not learn calculus. No offense, the guys that are actually in the military that are infantrymen, maybe you did learn calculus, right? It's not like we have all stupid soldiers today, but obviously, your typical grunt, especially in the medieval era, definitely couldn't even read, right? These guys were absolutely illiterate, stupid donkeys. All right, so a little bit tighter here. It's been a little bit sloppy in this episode. I probably shouldn't try to kick anymore because it sends my character to the netherworld. I'm out in front here, but this is intentional again, right? Let's take all these dipshit sturgeons and just go through here like a hot chick in high school, and we'll just attract everybody, and they're all going to chase us. We'll do a little mogging or whatever the hell they do these days, and we'll just get all the attention and take away from the forces that are coming up to attack our main units here, right? Meanwhile, when we can, we will hit them in the back, right? Smash the shit out of these units. We've got our club working. El Yaksha has got decent two-handed skill, right? It's not something that he's been working on, but 138 for two-handed, right? It's starting to get decent. It's really nice as an infantry captain to have this because all your two-handed units will get the perks from your two-handed skill. Even if you're going to remain sword and board, I recommend that you cross-spec a little bit so that your units in the division get these advantages. Sometimes there's advantages too, like extra hit points, right? That's hugely valuable. Now the screen is lighting with green as the enemy brings up a whole bunch of fucking sort of dilapidated units with bad armor, peasants. They've got the blacksmiths on the battlefield here. They look like they want to fight still, but every other guy is yelling and screaming for his mama. The day is lost. We can't stop them. And so it's a good time for war crimes. The AI does a good job of blocking. This is new and improved AI. Even when they retreat, these fuckers hold up a vigorous defense. It's both admirable and irritating. Irritating at the same time. That's the guy. He's screaming for help. Kill him. Right? The guy's the most cowardice dudes. Cut him down. He's running as fast as he can. He just gets chopped down and the buzzards eat his eyeballs. It's a great game, right? Your girlfriend's like, what the fuck sadist shit are you watching? Well, you could watch Full Metal Jacket and it would be 10 times worse than anything we've said on the channel. All right, another pummeling here. A bit more bloody than some of the previous battles, but again, to reemphasize, easier tactics. There's a correlation. You do complex tactics and you execute them correctly, you're going to have much lower casualties. On the extreme end, no casualties, right? A lot of guys are incredulous. They probably don't believe that you can fight a battle like that with no casualties, with the right perks. Absolutely. On the hardest difficulty, 0 injured, 0 dead. We've done it on the channel. If you want to search for it, you could just search for, I think it's under, if you search for perfection, it'll probably come up because it's a perfect battle. No injuries at all. All right. So this siege should go off without a hitch here, right? Because we don't have the RTS mod, however. That means it's going to be slower. So, see if I can think of a topic. Some kind of topic here. Let's do something short. Let's do the American Revolution. I love this one because it angers Americans. It's also enlightening, though, too. It was a great history professor that I listened to, an Amazon Audible account. He goes, you know, I want to give you another perspective on the American War of Revolution, American Revolutionary War, War of Independence, 1776. He said, do you realize that was the first battle where the French defeated the English with our help? And I'll just let that sink in for a minute. You're like, what? The fuck are you talking about? The French fighting the English? It was our war. And it's like, yeah, right. Well, you're Americanized, right? That's the American perspective. That's what perspective means, basically. Is we've got a hole in the wall here. I'm not even going to talk about this siege unless it gets messy or something like that. Perspective is everything, right? If you're where I live in the west coast of the United States, it's really weird for people to tell you that Japan is the Far East. That's a perfect example, right? We hear it all the time. Oh, Japan, the Far East. And I'm like, wait a minute. Japan is definitely west of us. I don't know what you're talking about, east. And that is because, holy shit. They got a javelin contest going on here. You fuckers. Damn, they're accurate. I'm already look like a pincushion here. You know, perspective is everything. If you're in London, then most certainly, right? Then Japan looks like it's east. But where we live, it's the closest western country to where I live near Seattle, Washington. So perspective is a funny thing. And I'll ramble on about this. Since this siege probably is going to be a blowout, we're just going to shove our way in here. I'll just tell you what I'm doing first. We'll do it, and then I'll ramble on with my little story, because I think it's a funny perspective. Fuckers. We're going to shove infantry divisions through this hole. I've mentioned this many times on the channel. I want to continue to mention that. Don't charge here. Your guys will get stuck at the gate. Not only will the siege be painfully slow, but you'll suffer way more casualties. Just take your units, in this case a square, and push it into the enemy forces, right? Into the area you want them to go to. Now we're going to put skirmishers here behind them, but we're probably going to move them in. As soon as our forces basically shove a hole, and look at how quickly they're pushing in there, it's way more effective than charging. And they are. They're already pushing by the enemy forces. There's hardly any archers here. Now we're going to bring the rest of our troops and drag them to the other flank, right? So the first infantry's towards our left. Now we're going to take the second corps and just drag it in behind the enemy here. Chop a hole as we go. Gain some levels. We should be able to get around the corner here. Okay, our second corps is here. You can have them charge too, sort of intermittently charge. But what we want to do is get them in here, right? So I'm just going to sneak on by everybody here. They're all trying to chase me. Now I'm going to get shot. I'm literally wary that I'm about to get shot. Get your head down. Shit. Javelins flying everywhere. You become the only target for them. But we're in. And now I'm dragging this unit. I have the 2nd Division following me, right? So it's the skirmishers, and they're pouring through the gate. Where'd that guy go? Look at him. He went into the wall. I may slow-mo that later on just to show that bug up close. But now we have 2 different flanks on the enemy, right? These forces are just bubbling all around the enemy, and this siege is over. Right? We're just going to be able to blast right through these forces that are in here, because suddenly they no longer have us jammed up in a little tiny hole entrance to the castle. All right, so I went on about that longer than I wanted to, but I like to talk about that philosophy because to me it's by far the best way. If you don't have siege weapons, if you have siege weapons, you just blast the enemy there. All right, so American War of Revolution, right? It's America versus Britain. What are you talking about, the French? Well, the French and the English have basically been rivals for 100 million years, right? The French and the English, their rivalries go back forever. The fucking Battle of Crécy and the Battle of Agincourt and 200, 300 years before that, right? The French and the English have literally been rivals for 1,000 years. And by the late 1760s, that rivalry was peaking again, right? They fucking hated each other. They had the 7 Years' War. which incidentally is very closely related to the War of Independence, right? The American War of Independence. The battles of Silesia with Frederick the Great, also quite related. And the French wanted to help the Americans, right? The French had possessions in what we now call North America. They had parts of Canada. They had parts to the east, right? A lot of Americans don't know that the French owned large portions of America. In fact, Napoleon sold the lands to America, and what most of us know is the Louisiana Purchase, right? He sold the United States about a third of our territory. Literally just said, here, I'll sell it to you. It's the greatest land transaction you'll ever make. So getting back to what I was saying, the French were here. The English and the French were fighting for a long time. The 7 Years' War, the war 1762 or something like that to 1770, the English basically beat the shit out of the French, right? There was a few French battles. The movie The Last of the Mohicans covers some of the rare instances where the French had the upper hand. And the French, by 1776, and the American sort of rebellion, wanted revenge. They wanted to help the Americans defeat the English, and more accurately, they were looking at it like, hey, we can slow down this English steamroller here. We can stop the English from completely taking all of the possessions overseas, all of the colonies. We can basically deal them a nice savage blow here if we help the Americans, right? We'll do some deals with the Americans. We'll talk to some of their leaders, Benjamin Franklin and whatnot, and we will do effectively sweetheart deals with them. In some cases, they just gave the Americans money, ships, guns. Some estimates I've seen, $100 million that the French spent on the American wars, which, by the way, is very similar to Ukraine today, right? This is a very common thing for countries to spend large amounts of money on countries that you hope somehow benefit you in the future. Of course, today it's the United States versus Russia. We're very happy to help some other country use their soldiers to defeat a country that we don't like, right? Putin and his murderous regime. So very similar in 1776, the French helped the Americans. And if Americans don't know this, it's a real tragedy, because it's very easy, I think, to say that the Americans do not get independence without French help. They were instrumental in the American Revolutionary War. So this professor said that in a lecture, and I had to think about it for a little while, but it's great, right? It's such a great line because it emphasizes that the American War of Revolution was really the first time that the French defeated the English in about a 100-year period with our help. Perspective is amazing. All right, so smashed and talked our way through that siege. Didn't too bad. We didn't even get knocked unconscious, even though I think I accumulated 30 or 40 javelins in the face. Not too worried about the events here. And I think we're getting kind of to the end stage here, right? We have a very powerful force. I kind of feel, like this is, you could do the proverbial wave your hands together, clap your hands together, knock the dust off, like a job well done, right? We have acquired 2 cities and 2 castles now here for Sean. We've expanded his territory. We've given you guys random historical perspective. We've talked your ear off. In fact, let me get a little more caffeine here as we get a save game. And I don't know what else there is to do. I guess we could siege Bulgaria. That would be the nice final feather in the cap. It'll be a difficult siege, but I'm sure you guys are in for a difficult siege. This is one of the most aggravating cities in the game. Probably the worst to defend. So I'm not thrilled about taking it, but we could auto-resolve. We could have a nice garrison here. If you're going to play Sturgia, as we max out his one-handed skill, look at all these perks. I'm not going to even do these today. If you're playing Sturgia, you're using Bulgaria in some capacity. Maybe you give it to a vassal. It's a perfect example. You couldn't pay me to defend this city against intelligent players, right? If you were on defense and the other side was a bunch of players and commanders, I would just rage quit and throw my mouse. Like it's a terribly designed city from a number of different perspectives. But we don't need to rant about it too much here. Offensively, it's going to be a little bit easier to take because of that, or at least I think it will be. There's a lot of different accesses. It's very bifurcated, quite literally bifurcated. There's 2 different portions to the city. You know what? We're going to go fight whatever Sturgeon force this is. We're not going to be able to do this before Takor Castle falls. There's a little tiny garrison. So let's finish the episode here with one more smashing of the sturgeons. This is just the kind of stuff you have to do in a campaign. Of course, we're going to fly in with our hair on fire. The enemy should be afraid if for no other reason than our hair is on fire. And hopefully this is a battle where they play defensive. It's something that guys want to see all the time. When you outnumber the enemy in a situation like this and you attack, oftentimes they'll play defensive. And it's different tactics, right? Because they're typically static. We'll see what they do here. You can tell by the bottom numbers. If the bottom numbers are increasing, they're usually playing offense. They're increasing right now, but I see some of them, or they're decreasing now, but we're moving forward. We won't be able to tell until we're a little closer here. They're right in the middle of the map there. I'm just doing this to speed it up. I'm not actually charging with our units here, by the way. Start forming some lines here. A tactical situation here is pretty similar. The big key is most of the time the enemy presents a similar. They are defending. Look at that. They've got a bunch of infantry and archers, and they're running sideways, right? That's not normal behavior. That is defensive. It's very similar than defending. You just have to be the one that's moving, right? So we're going to move in. We've got much more archers than them. Realistically, we could actually fight this the easy way. The easy way to fight this would be to put shield walls out in front, and then archers spread out in front. Preferably get archers to a flank. Like we have 61 archers in our 8th Corps with 43 horse archers. We could get them even behind the enemy or something like that. And what would happen eventually is we could probably make the AI charge here. If you do enough damage to them in a static position, they will give up the defensive position and charge you. Because the AI is like, well, this isn't working. We better change something. And of course, if we're prepared for that, if we know the AI is going to do that, then they just have absolutely no chance. I think we'll just fight them as if they're not going to charge here, and we will surround, right? So let's get dynamic here. I'm going to start moving. The same divisions and the same numerical process is almost always identical in every battle. We're just moving them in a dynamic way. The easiest way to think about it is left to right. Our formations go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't have to use 8. 4 here would be just fine. It would be preferable you had 6, 7, 8 units because you have more levers to pull. But we're going to take this right side. I'm shoving their cavalry back. Behind them is horse archers. So you got Jav, Cav, and horse archers sort of menacing the enemy. And I'm doing that to plow the road for our archers and our skirmishers. So the 6th and 5th is skirmishers and archers, right? Again, the higher numbers are typically on the right of our army. We'll bring the infantry towards the center here. Whoops. That is something I typically do every battle. You want the enemy attacking your strongest infantry. And let's get this 2nd and 3rd division, this Cav and shock troop division behind the enemy. That way they're fully surrounded. Now they're starting to sort of charge, or at least their infantry's charging. So we want those skirmishers moving back. And now it probably starts to resemble a situation where they're attacking where they're attacking you, right? It starts to look similar, right? We've got the square here. These guys can be just told to move back a little bit. The 6th Division is over there on that flank, scorching them. The 2nd and 3rd Division can charge, right? They're on that far side, now charging up into their archer ranks. And that's going to be very unpleasant for those archers. Very soon, we're going to have a bunch of axe murderers waving their axes at them. And this battle's over, right? We don't have to do anything else at this stage. Our ranged units are well positioned. Our skirmishers here are just letting fly javelins. They're flying by me every second. You can see all the axes going. We could move the skirmishers behind him here, but this is kind of, it's overkill. The battle's already over, but you can get fancy here, get the skirmishers behind him, and then collapse upon him. You see now the enemy's fully surrounded by troops. They have archers on the back line here, but look at them being shot and scorched. Those guys are being absolutely mangled by our archers. We have a ranged advantage. How many times do I mention that? If you have the ranged advantage in Bannerlord, you win. That's all there is to it. I mean, of course, presuming that the numbers aren't insane. If you're outnumbered 20 to 1, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Although if you have the ranged advantage and you're outnumbered 20 to 1, you must have a lot of good archers, right? You might still win. All right, so they're bringing peasants here and attacking our archers. We're going to get some casualties here, but man, are they being flayed. And you don't see a death spam like that very often from a defensive opponent, but they have weak troops. The sturgeons at this stage are absolutely war weary. They're down to looters and recruits. That guy did a full-on cartwheel right in front of us. We'll try to remember to slow-mo that. And I think this is sort of the capstone to this little... It's going to be a mini-series within the series, the Disaster of War series. I think this is episode 40 or something like that in the series. And what I've tried to do is keep chronological series within the series. So if you're watching this, maybe on a playlist, these episodes should come in order. And I would love a comment if they're out of order, right? If you're watching this and then the next episode is episode 2 from this series, let me know. But another pulverizing victory here. And Sturgeon forces. I'm very happy that we were able to show some dominance in this episode with Sturgeon units. And a lot of guys want to see that. Very much a practical thing in Bannerlord. You just have to use the good old tactics. That's the best part of tactics, is once you learn them, they're universal. You can play any kingdom and do well. Alright, the music has stopped, so my playlist is over. We'll probably edit in some music, put some music in here later on. But I think we're going to call this good, friends. I appreciate you watching to this stage. Sean, I really appreciate you writing in. I know it was a little bit of a delay, both for me to get to these episodes and for me to release these on YouTube, but I appreciate that. Just so people know, I'm probably 10 or 15 episodes behind on the series. In other words, I've got a lot of work to do, a lot of episodes to catch up, but I will try to get to all of them. Please subscribe if you want to see more. Hit that like button on the way out. And with all that said, friends, I will see you next time.